Good evening and welcome, everybody. My name is Gary Vogan with Kaiser Vogan Design. Hope everybody's doing well. Thank you for joining the meeting. I'm a landscape architect, land planner for Kaiser Vogan Design, speaking on behalf of our client, Truland Development Companies, for the Middle A project. We are proposing a PD development plan rezoning for the Middle Eight. And I'm going to share my screen here to make sure I have that plan up. There we go. Make sure everybody sees that. But as I mentioned, we are submitting a PD development plan and rezoning, and this is an informational meeting for the neighbors. And welcome. On the call, we have our team members, architects, engineers, transportation planners. We have a few aldermen, some planning commissioners potentially, and the city of Franklin, so they're on the call. Thank you for being here. So I just want to go through the protocol of this project and just the process of this meeting to talk about the Middle Eight. So if you could all stay muted and answer questions by chat at the end of the meeting, that'd be fantastic. I can go through all those chat questions at the end of the presentation to address those comments, give you answers the best I can. If I can't answer those questions, I'll be honest and say it's still in the progress or still in the works with the city, or have one of my team members to join us to answer that question. So you'll have full time to answer questions at the end of the meeting in the chat session, if you don't mind. Thank you. So the Middle Eight project will be a true community that aspires to raise the bar for what connected mixed-use living means for Franklin. Designed to provide a range of housing options to enrich the neighborhood and build upon the factory district that's been kind of buzzword through the area in terms of the Envision Franklin Plan Amendment. Just want to talk about the shared goals of the project with our team that we prepare these plans for, and we've gone through a host of meetings with the city of Franklin, other neighborhood meetings that we've done. I'll talk a little bit about that, but the shared goals are to protect the value of Franklin's unique charm, provide density for preservation by allowing new housing where infrastructure exists, meet extraordinary housing demands within the downtown core, providing a diverse type of housing product. Support the creation of this new factory district that was kind of sparked by the aldermen of this area of Patrick Baggett and Matt Brown. So we've had discussion. Hopefully some of you were able to attend the factory district workhouse that has been recently held. It was great feedback, and hopefully you had the opportunity to speak to that. So I'll basically talk about big picture items in terms of where the project is, some of the land use policies that we're going through, some of the process we've been through, meetings we've had with the city, then get into some of the graphic master plans, illustrations that kind of really showcase what the design vision that the team has created in creating this dynamic project. So overall, as I mentioned, I'm going to move my mouse over a little bit at my hand. So, okay. So the Middle Eight project is along Liberty Pike. It is 7.2 acres, this hatched area within this aerial photograph. Adjacent to the factory on Liberty Pike and Daniels Drive, you can see the park at Harlowsdale Farm, the factory, Jamison Station, Old Liberty Pike, and Franklin Road. As I've always said, the Middle Eight is kind of a culmination of a project that is kind of built off the buzz of the factory, the enhancements to Franklin Road, the enhancements to our connectivity to downtown, the walkability, the improvements to Harlowsdale Farm, and just the synergy that's been created for the factory district recently through the aldermen and the planning commissioners for our city. I want to talk a little bit about the site itself. This shows the aerial photograph of what it is today, 7.2 acres. Before we went to this PD rezoning effort, we subdivided the Truett home, which is the home of our clients, the Truland Development, the factory across the street. This shows sort of the largest internal tracts in the city of Franklin. What I want to focus on here with Franklin Road to the left, Miles Manor to the left, Liberty Pike, Daniels Drive, Old Liberty Pike. As most of you know, the site slopes from Liberty Pike down to Old Liberty Pike. The drainage is just uninhibited, just drives to the, basically from Liberty down to Old Liberty. Our intent is to capture that stormwater and work in terms of drainage and stormwater to help that what existing condition issues may be on the site. So that's part of our project design, work with the city of Franklin. Just want to bring that to your attention. But the yellow line depicts this property in its entirety. We are proposing a 75-foot naturalistic buffer adjacent to national registered property, the Alpheus Truett House, that is required per historic zoning. Nope, next slide. As I mentioned, I want to talk a little bit about land use policy. This property is currently zoned R4. The intent is to rezone this to planned development, a PD district. The adjacent zonings of this properties are PD, the factory, and Jameson Station, and then R4 around us. Let me just make sure people aren't coming in. Let me add a few people. Katie, can you admit some people into the meeting?
Sorry, Gary, I can't. If you can just say admit all.
I lost that screen.
Hold on. We're coming.
People trying to come in, so thank you,
and please mute yourselves as well if you are not muted.
If I'm coming in by telephone, how do I do that?
Gary, I think you can manually mute. It's a great question.
Yes, it is a question because I've got numbers and stars and a whatever the other key. I don't have any mute button whatsoever, and I'm not.
Okay.
I can't get in the video meeting right now.
Yeah, we'll
so
manually.
What can I do?
Thank you, Gavin. Appreciate it. I just want to make sure everybody's in the meeting as they're coming in a little bit later. Just want to make sure. So thank you for that, everybody. So yeah, spoke to existing zoning for the project. The site is R4, proposed a PD development rezoning effort development plan to the city of Franklin. Portion of the site is currently within the historic preservation overlay. Half of our site in the green is historic preservation overlay. So that is the district that historic zoning has their eyes and ears on, everything done architecturally that needs to be thought through as we go through that process. We actually met with the Historic Zoning Commission, had a couple of DRC meetings with them, walked through the process. We received approval by them for a preliminary certificate of appropriateness. And now that gives us the advancement to move forward with this PD rezoning plan. So we've got kind of got their blessing, but they're always going to be involved in the future of anything within the green zone. And this same line will show up on the master plan, but we have to go before the Historic Zone Commission for anything in this green zone, be it architecture. So they have their stamp on the colors, the character, the details of the building, the elevations, you know, to hold the city of Franklin's guidelines for the historic design element. So that's very key. They've been very accommodating with us, working towards this process. So we'll be going to them after this as well. It's not just the one stop and done. We will go back to them to ask them about additional details for the architecture as we get past this stage. Also talking land use, big picture. Envision Franklin is the guiding document for the city of Franklin. And it allocates various districts in the city where certain products and project types occur, land use policy. So this is taken from the actual city of Franklin GIS, Envision Franklin design concepts, and our site is located in the orange, which is multifamily. That is what the city is proposing for this site to be within Envision Franklin. Other areas are also noted, but you can see across this is the railroad tracks here, Liberty Pike here. The orange to the right across the CSX railroad is also multifamily. So we're not the only multifamily. There's some existing out there, being Jameson Station, the Everly, some existing multifamily, and then there's some storage right in here, self-storage, that over time the city has seen that this could be multifamily. So we are going by the Envision Franklin guiding document that this site is to be multifamily. So just want to point that out. Zooming into our site, again, we're saying that this site is accommodated for multifamily residential per Envision Franklin design concept. Across the street is neighborhood commercial, which is the factory. To the right is neighborhood mixed use, which is Jamison Station, and then everything else around it is parcels for single family residential. The overall master plan. This wanted to show the overall context of our master plan. Again, the yellow is the property, the 7.2 acres, the middle 8, adjacent to factory along Liberty Pike, Daniels Drive, Old Liberty Pike to the south, Franklin Road, Harlesdale to the upper left, and Jamison Station to the right. And you can see some of the existing multifamily to the right there also across the CSX railroad tracks, in addition to what we're proposing. So I just want to show general context.
Lights in the meeting, we need to admit him.
Yeah, I want to admit some other people. They're still coming in. There we go. Thank you. Welcome, everybody. So speaking, as I mentioned, the historic preservation overlay, this blue line that is kind of bisecting the site, these buildings within that zone are within the historic preservation. So that's where I talked about that, you know, they still have their design review and the meetings we have to go to present in addition to as we move forward to. Just want to show that area there. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit on the master plan. So details about the project I wanted to get to. So the middle 8 will offer a range of diverse housing types, as I mentioned, ranging from multifamily, residential units to townhomes, single family, duplex units, offering from 1 to 4 bedrooms. Somebody's drawing on my screen. Not sure who's doing that. But so as I mentioned, diverse array of product type. The interior buildings are the multifamily residential, buildings 1 and 2, that all address Liberty Pike. And what we've always talked about, I'll go back to the overall master plan, we always talked about was working with historic zoning. We wanted to make sure we showed a transition of building types, be it from Liberty Pike to Old Liberty Pike, from Jamison to Franklin Road, to show that transition of height from Jamison and kind of downplay towards Franklin Road, and do the same from Liberty back to Old Liberty Pike. So zooming back into this plan, this is multifamily residential in the building 1 and building 2, 254 units of varying building mix of bedroom units. Up front along Liberty Pike, we show buildings 3, 4, and 5. Those are townhomes. And going down the new street here, Street A is single family residential, duplexes predominantly along the edge to the south of Old Liberty Pike, with a couple single family units also sprinkled in, buildings 23, 18, and 17. We're proposing a new street that connects Old Liberty Pike, Daniels Drive and Liberty Pike. So this will be a new street with on-street parallel parking to create a very pedestrian-oriented streetscape, walkability, and access to parking. What I want to also talk about is the parking underground. There's parking located underground within this multifamily unit building. So all the parking is provided below grade, which allows us to provide ample amount of open space, courtyards, plazas, things of that nature that just you wouldn't see in a typical development. So this proposed new street that ties to Daniels Drive and Liberty Pike provides access to below these multifamily buildings underground, which affords this open space opportunity. The access points are off the internal street. So all the parking is accessed along this and not along Liberty Pike or Daniels. So it's all underground parking. As I mentioned, there's 254 multifamily units within these 3 buildings, and I'll show some of the architectural elevations to show the height and the transition. The total unit count is 275 units globally for the site, including the multifamily. So you have the 254 multifamily and the addition of the townhomes, duplexes, and single family. So 275 units total. We're also asking for 2,000, I'm going to admit somebody else, we're also asking for 2,000 square feet of commercial space within the building, showing a little cafe in this location. So have that opportunity to allow this retail component. Again, we want to have this outdoor cafe as part of this element. One of the beauties of the master plan also that we're addressing Liberty Pike is that the building is not sitting right on Liberty Pike. We're proposing this kind of offset ebb and flow of the building that allows open space to kind of spill out onto Liberty Pike. The building's kind of rode back and forth along this edge to provide this opportunity for open space. As you know, Jameson is right up on the street. It's only like 12 to 20 feet off the back of curb. We're allowing expression of this building to invite people in the community, offering these open space elements that have front stoops and units fronting these open spaces. And then also, as you have this perimeter new street connecting Daniels Drive to Old Liberty Pike, opportunities for parallel parking, street trees, stoops, porches, and inviting streetscape element. Talked a little bit about stormwater on the front end, that the site slopes from high to low. We're proposing stormwater in this location, this little notch in this area that will provide water quality in addition to stormwater. As I mentioned, it is all unimpeded flow right now from the site high to low. The intent is to capture that water, treat it properly, flow it off the property as per the city requires. This little building here within this park is a nod to the Truett House, a greenhouse element that is part of this open space pocket park, showing an open space trails that eventually leads you down to Old Liberty Pike to Old Liberty Pike Park. We're showing a host of other open spaces that allows us to really just engage community walkability and parks and plazas and courtyards. There's a little pocket park here, the English Garden we call it, that'll show an image here that kind of creates another bucolic area of landscape and different elements of the open space package. Go back to that. So with the master plan here, I mentioned the number of units and what we're trying to accomplish here. I'd like to get into some of the elements of the architecture and how we're kind of proposing the design intent of this master plan community. This is a bird's eye view of the project from Franklin Road, bird's eye. See the factory to the left, Jameson Station in this location here. Again, working with historic zoning, it was all about the transition from Jameson Station to Franklin Road, from Liberty Pike to Old Liberty Pike, and how we can transition building types in both directions, be it in height and architectural character and scale, working with historic zoning. So you can see on this plan, we have existing Jameson Station that is a 3+1 4-story building. We're showing a 4+1 recessed elevation here that transitions to a 2+1 elevation on this multifamily building, and then to 2-story townhomes, and then the existing 2-story Truett House. But again, showing the character of the massing along Liberty Pike, transitioning from Jameson Station to Franklin Road, and then transitioning from these multifamily buildings in the middle core to a mix of, as I mentioned, townhomes, single family, duplexes on the edges that transition down to Old Liberty Pike. Wanted to show a streetscape elevation of Liberty Pike. This was used as part of our historic zoning commission plans, as well as all these other images to show the transition of height from Jameson Station to Franklin Road. So this shows kind of an elevation and a plan view. And as I mentioned, the building erodes, ebbs and flows along Liberty Pike to create these open spaces as opposed to Jameson Station along Liberty Pike and Daniels. But on this plan, Jameson Station to the left, as I mentioned, that's a 3-story +1. We've asked for a land use plan amendment to allow additional height as part of our project process to allow us to go to a 4+1 on the first multifamily building adjacent Jameson Station, be within 10% of that height, then transition to a 3-story total, which is a 2+1 recessed, and then to a 2-story townhome, and then transition 75-foot buffer to the Truett House along Franklin Road. wanted to show a perspective that was requested by historic zoning to show what does it really look like from Franklin Road as you're standing from Franklin Road or walking down the street on Liberty Pike. So we're standing about 100 feet from Franklin Road at eye level, looking at the middle eight. If I can clear this. Trying to erase all these marks here if I can. There we go. Get rid of all this. Bother me. So yeah, the view shed here from Franklin Road looking towards the proposed middle eight. This first bank of townhomes on the master plan with Franklin Factory to the left. This first bank of townhomes is about 338 feet from Franklin Road. The Truett House is to the right. And you can see Jameson Station at the terminus. That is kind of the focal point of the street as it bends towards the railroad tracks. But really just try to show the transition of building height to Jameson Station and what you see from Franklin Road. Historic zoning also asked about another view shed back from the CSX railroad tracks. So on to the left is the existing Jameson Station, which is a 4-story building, and then the factory to the right, showing what we'd like to see working with the alderman was what does this view shed look like from this area transitioning from Jameson Station to the middle eight. One of the things we're also discussing with the alderman, the city of Franklin staff, engineering is how can we beautify or amplify Liberty Pike to make it a more pedestrian oriented street, walkability. This is our kind of vision of what Liberty Pike could be. We'd like to add a median, street trees, better walkability. As you know, it's a thoroughfare traffic. We like to calm it down, make it a pedestrian oriented street to the factory, provide walkability both from the middle eight to the factory itself. So we're working with the staff, the alderman, and the team of what Liberty Pike could be as part of the bigger district of the property and how it could interfold within the region. This is an elevation study, and there's a little graphic on the bottom that kind of shows you where you are. I know it's probably hard to read, but this is the proposed new Street A that goes into the development off Liberty Pike, showing the townhomes at the corner, the 3 single family. You can see the Truett home in the background distance, 3 single family homes and a duplex. This is just showing the character of what these buildings could look like. We're required to show conceptually what this architecture looks like, but again, will be further detailed out and designed as we work with the city of Franklin, historic zoning. But as part of this package, we need to share what the architectural design intent and the vision is. So this kind of shows an example snapshot of what this could be. Going into some other images that were provided for historic zoning and land use plan amendment were this elevation on Liberty Pike. This is standing on Liberty Pike. This would be the first bank of townhomes. There's 3 of them here to the right that are 2-story in nature. And then you see the first bank of multifamily, which is the 2 stories plus 1 recessed, as I talked about. And then it starts bending back to Jameson Station in the back. But again, creating a walkable community that's inviting, welcoming, plays off the interactivity between this project and the buzz of the factory, all the improvements they're doing, the walkability to downtown, the park at Harlesdale Farm, just engaging the community and creating something very robust and a synergy to the development. This is an elevation showing the new street into the site. The little red arrow on the bottom shows you where you're looking into. This is the proposed street with parallel parking, sidewalks on both sides. To the left is the multifamily units showing the transition in height. And then to the right are the townhomes, some of the single family, the duplexes, but showing what the character of the streetscape could be, the street tree elements, the walkability, the parking, opportunity for guests to park on the street, but creating a very pedestrian oriented street in nature. As part of the building 1, we have a residential muse that is reminiscent of some British design elements, some European design elements that really embrace a block in the building that allows a muse to go between the buildings and residential units to face the building. So it's very interactive space. Connects the plaza. You have an aerial bridge across that connects the two buildings, which shows the multifamily units that are engaging this space, create outdoor environment, people meeting, gathering space, things of that nature, string lights, just animating the space. But units are all addressing the street. So it's a very unique opportunity that creates another streetscape element as part of the plazas and parks. This is the mid-block plaza that is on Liberty Pike that really showcases the main engaging space of the community that starts on Liberty Pike, goes down to the new street towards Old Liberty Pike, creates that connection back to the greenhouse and stormwater. As I mentioned, we're allowing for a plus or minus 3,000 square feet of retail, commercial, cafe, so to speak. And this kind of shows that element as part of the architecture that has the outdoor seating, just some limited retail in the development for the community, as well as the development and the residents themselves. But just a great open space that connects this project and design to the factory and the walkability of the community. Kind of peeling back a little bit, now we're across the street in the same zone. We're looking kind of on the factory side towards the site, mid-block of the multifamily residential between the buildings. But again, showing the mass, the scale, the character of the building architecture, working with historic zoning in the future as well as we get into it. But showcasing the interconnectivity, the walkability, again, the idea of what Liberty Pike could be, as opposed to a 3-lane section. We'd like to introduce some type of median if possible, walkability, just make it more pedestrian friendly and safe to walk across Liberty Pike as opposed to what exists today. Working with staff in that element and with the factory and our team. This is the view shot of the most eastern courtyard adjacent Jamison Station, but really opening up the building. As I mentioned, the building kind of ebbs and flows from the street, allows these pockets of open space to enhance the entrance and the welcoming features of the building, pedestrian little courtyards and plazas, and just create that opportunity to engage with others if you live in the community and or walking to Franklin or to the factory. Animating the spaces. That same view shot, we're just kind of pulled back now kind of on the factory side, just showing what Liberty Pike could be. The elevation of the building, as I mentioned, this is a 4+1 5-story total building next to the Jamison Station, which is on the left, which is a 4-story building in itself. Showing the connectivity and the walkability that we're trying to promote on this project as well. We call this the Grand Steps, the plaza between buildings 1 and 2. We're standing on the new street that is proposed, paralleling Old Liberty Pike, that you see through this middle plaza and courtyard. As I mentioned, there's so much grade change on the site that this allows us to create this very dynamic plaza that slopes down, these interactive steps, fountains. You can see the factory district and the chimneys in the background. But again, showcasing what the opportunities for the open space that are created with parking underground. And that's been very important to allow us to move forward with the city of Franklin, the land use plan amendment, and with historic zoning, that the parking underground allows us the opportunity to provide all this open space as opposed to doing a parking deck wrap, much like some other communities, but really showcasing the opportunities for amenities in this project, but also showcasing the architectural detail that's gone into thought for the design team working with historic zoning and the planning staff of the city of Franklin. Little shot of the Pocket Park or English Garden that's within the community, closer to the Old Liberty Pike side. Again, just allowing opportunity for open space that's the benefit of this community, and offers these amenities. You can see a glimpse of the multifamily in the background with a single family home to the left and a duplex to the right. Just a little pocket park here. As I mentioned earlier, this is that little pocket park, greenhouse park with the water quality, stormwater element. We want to make it both function for water quality and things of that nature, but also be aesthetic at the same time. And this little greenhouse in the middle is kind of a nod to the history of the Truett House and its family. That could be a very crucial part of this park and interact with the buildings adjacent to it. This shows kind of the pedestrian lobby below the building that offers the pedestrian entries if you're parking underground, what you're getting into, and the welcoming experience up to your unit within the multifamily buildings. So I just want to talk a little bit about next steps that we have to go before. As I mentioned, we're asking and requesting a preliminary development plans to the city of Franklin for rezoning from R4 to PD. We submitted these plans on March 27th, where we've gotten comments from the city already. We're addressing those. We have to resubmit. The development plan and rezoning will be at the Franklin Planning Commission for initial submittal April 10th. So we've got some plans to address and make some comments based on the city review. We'll have a joint conceptual workshop in April 27th. That is before the Mayor and Board of Aldermen, Franklin Planning Commission. And then we're tentatively set for a Franklin Planning Commission meeting on May 25th. And then if that respectfully gets approval, then we can move to 3 more readings before Mayor and Board of Aldermen. And that will be September in August. So there's plenty of meetings to go before that, before we get down the road, but we wanted to get this opportunity to allow the neighbors to see the plan, offer input, ask questions about the community. And we also want to mention that we've had several meetings with historic zoning, land use plan amendment. So we've been to the Mayor and Board of Aldermen Planning Commission on some other preliminary meetings, giving us the nod to move forward. So this is kind of the next step to give you an opportunity to see what we're doing. But I also want to say that if you want to learn more about the project, you can go to this website here. The team and the clients have created this website, www.livemiddle8.com. You can go to that website, log in, enter your email address. You can see more information. There's a full vision booklet in there that really showcases what this community could be and the elements that they're trying to promote within the project. One thing I also want to follow up on, there'll probably be a question before everybody, is that we have submitted very detailed plans for this PD development plan rezoning. It has stormwater design, conceptual utility design, water, sewer, storm, very detailed architecture, which you've seen here. We submitted a traffic impact study and parking analysis as well. So those people, or those plan, admitting some people in here also, they're coming in. So all those elements are in the city's hands. They're addressing stormwater, traffic, all those elements. So I thank you for your time and just want to open it up. And again, like I said, I'll try to address all these questions as they've come in.
I just want to ask if we can go to this meeting, okay?
Hello?
Good to hear.
Hey, Gary, why don't you go
I
ahead
can-
and mute people? And if you guys do have questions, we'll go through the chat. And I'm going to start from the top.
I can't do that. I can't, ma'am, because I couldn't get through on video and I'm on the telephone and I happen to be right in the middle. My property is surrounded by this entire, I'm the most impacted about this project than probably anybody here on the telephone. So
Okay.
I would like to ask some questions and be recognized, actually.
No, we appreciate it. We want you to be recognized. I appreciate you letting us know that you cannot use the chat feature. So why don't I'll scroll these up to the top and go ahead and ask your question, ma'am, and maybe state who you are so we know, because we can't see you on chat.
Absolutely.
So yeah, please.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We had a conversation before this meeting, so you would let me know that it was informational.
Yes.
My name is Lisa Flowers Gary, and I'm
Yes.
located at 210 Franklin Road. That is in the middle, in between the factory to Old Liberty. So I've got Daniels over there. I'm straight on Franklin Road, and I'm literally 3 or 4 houses down from the corner of Liberty and Franklin. I happen to run those routes every day because that's what I do, and it's really nice and quiet. But I do have a lot of concerns about traffic. I have a lot of concerns about our schools accommodating that many people. I
Sure.
have extreme concerns that any project such as this, and I discussed with you, this is a very nice project. You've done it very well. You're very talented, but there is absolutely no way that you can make that place brick by brick anything like 100 and 200-year-old homes that line this area. And I also understand you're making green space. That's man-made green space. And you talked about green space over and over and over again. And right now, there is the nature and lovely beauty of our trees and grass. So that's how I feel about that. And that many people moving into Franklin, I've lived here long enough to know that this isn't about us, the historic area, at all. This is about other people coming to move here. And at this point, I already feel invaded. Absolutely do. I've absolutely, brick by brick, had to rebuild my house due to our sewer system that we just now got working. And now you're talking about sewer. Well, I happen to be the absolute lowest line property here. And the sewers, as they were before, overflowed into my yard every time it rained. So, and then on top of that, during the construction, they forgot that they didn't have a working drain in my home, and it flooded twice. And I have literally gone from 1800-year-old mansion, bit by bit by bit, to relay my chestnut floors. So yes, I do have that they don't make anymore. So I have very much historical concerns. I know that it's all up to historical and that you all have done what you've had to do to make it historic. But in my opinion, there's absolutely no way that a modern development as such belongs in this area. So whoever else is there, alderman or whatever, I'm just saying what I need to say because I feel invaded, as is the projects that have already been done and promised to us have been a disaster. It no longer looks historical already. And I find it very peaceful on Liberty Pike. I find Liberty Pike a wonderful place to take 12-mile runs every day. It's very peaceful to me as it is in nature as it appears. It's also a school zone. The traffic is slow. They just now did improvements on Franklin Road so that I could at least breathe and get out of my driveway. So I do not believe at all that these roads are adequate for this area. And I do not believe that this project should move forward in any shape, form, or fashion. And I know that I, as one person, probably everyone in my neighborhood, if they felt the way that I did, are going to have absolutely no say-so in this because there are a lot more of you than there are of us. So I'm just laying out how I feel right now because I do not feel that one person, unless they absolutely live here and actually care about history, will agree with me. And I probably will have no vote and say so anyway. So this is what I have to say about the project. If I am invited to take a vote, that's fantastic. But at least my voice be known and that I will be probably losing, I don't know, about $1 million value of my home based on this project. And
Thank you.
that is how I feel about it.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Lisa. Yeah, I mean, feel free. That is your right to reach out to your alderman, reach out to your planning commissioners, reach out to the city. This is an open environment here for comments and questions. We have to go before public meetings, so you are more than welcome to voice your opinion at these meetings. I will say that our clients, Trillium Development, is very engaging, very open. They're willing to meet with you one-on-one and anything you'd like to speak to. So I open that door up and they will be glad. I'd be glad to meet with you as well and talk any details. You talked about stormwater, you talked about transportation. All those elements are being studied as we're working through this project. And believe me, the city of Franklin takes pride and we take pride in what we do. that those things are studied, stormwater, traffic. We have a traffic consultant on the team. We have a civil engineer in the team looking at drainage. The city of Franklin is one of the most stringent districts that we've worked in terms of stormwater quality, flow, stormwater drainage, sewer, water, utilities, all that is part of the process. And again, transportation, we submitted a transportation study. All those things are being reviewed by the city. We've gotten some feedback. So thank you. So please, thank you for your input. So I'd like to go through some of these comments here and questions.
I need to be muted again. I'm sorry.
That's fine. Ms. Crockett, I think you have your hand up. I can't see everybody, so I can't see who's all.
Are we able to go to the April 10th rezoning meeting? Are we able?
Anyone is allowed to attend any public meeting by the city of Franklin. The first meeting will not be till April 27th of a joint conceptual workshop. And then the planning commission would be, where is that? It's planning commission would be May 25th. So the next two meetings that are public would be April 27th and May 25th.
Okay, but you talked about a rezoning meeting on April the 10th. Are we able to go to that meeting? This affects us, rezoning affects us greatly.
Yeah, that's not a meeting, man. That's when we submit our comments to the city. So you don't have, that's not a meeting. That's our submittal timeline. So the only meetings are April 27th and then May 25th for Franklin Planning Commission, and then future mayor and board meetings will be after that. So thank you.
I have a question. My name is Nick Campy. I live not too far from this property. Has a TIS been completed for this project?
Yeah, that's what I've mentioned. Yes, the TIS has been prepared, as well as a shared parking study it's required as part of the submittal process. So that's being reviewed, and we've gotten some comments from staff already on the TIS study. So yes, it has been submitted.
Has an ENR been completed yet?
I'm sorry?
An EIR, Environmental Impact Report?
We have done a survey of the site. The city has asked us to do an assessment of the site as well. I mean, predominantly this site slopes from high to low, so there's not many different features to it other than a slope site. We do have some 100-year flood, which is in this little pipe stem that goes to Old Liberty Pike. But we've got a tree survey as well that we've done.
Has anyone done any reports to see if there's any type of endangered species or anything that might be impacted by this project that you guys are not aware of?
Not already on.
We have not performed that study yet.
Is that a study that's going to be required?
It's 82 people.
It is not, or it is?
If you could help me, Yates, on that. I do not think that is required, but we can look into that. Maybe Yates, you can assist me with that.
That's correct. This is Yates Bateman, the civil engineer. I don't believe that's required.
So
Thank you.
So my question is it the belief that for something that is zoned historical, it's not the land, it's just the building? Is that going to be something that will be provided to all people that own historical land, that it's just the building itself and not the land, and that can be rezoned?
Is this your first question in the chat session as well? Or was that your question?
It was a question, correct.
So repeat that question, please.
So are we to assume that if something is zoned historical, it's not the land itself, it's just the physical building on that land? So for Harlansdale Farm, for instance, it's zoned historical, but this would set precedence that it's not in fact the land that's historical, rather just the building, and that could be rezoned as long as it is adjacent to some type of multifamily high density residential complex.
To simply state that, sir, basically historic preservation is an overlay. We have zoning requirements, and as I mentioned, each site is zoned differently. This tract is currently zoned R4, others are zoned commercial, others are zoned PD, others are zoned civic. Historic preservation is just an overlay on a zoning requirement. And so with that, a portion of our site is within the historic preservation overlay. We are rezoning it to a PD.
No, I understand that completely. What I'm saying is your argument is that that property isn't in fact historical at all. It's just the physical building that's historical. So the 5 acres that's
Yeah.
associated with the whole entire project isn't historical.
Yeah.
It's just the building itself. So I'm saying you're setting a precedence that where the argument can be if you have 400 acres or 40 acres and one single building on that acreage, you're setting a precedence that it's not the land itself, it's just the physical building, in which that case, then we could be rezoning vast majority of the historical areas if it's just an open land.
We are focusing on this site only. I can't speak to everything. We are focused specifically on this site.
But is that your argument towards the historical preservation board? What's your line of justification saying that this doesn't have any historical importance? What is your line of kind of providing that?
Let me go back to this drawing real quick. If I can find it. So this is the GIS map showing the historic preservation overlay. A portion.
No, I understand that. I'm just saying, what is your line of communication to quantify and properly illustrate that that's not in fact historical, even though it has a historical overlay? Are you saying the dirt itself is not historical and it's just the building itself that has the historical importance?
I'm not going to argue to that. I'll let staff step in here if you don't mind, Joey, maybe explain what he's asking. I'm not sure exactly what he's asking, but.
Well, it's zoned historical, so you have to make an argument of why you believe that it's not that important in order for you to rezone it, right? So I'm asking, what is that argument that you're making that it doesn't have the importance that the overlay has clearly marked on it already?
Yeah, Gary, let me jump in here really quick.
Please.
So the historic preservation overlay is for any alterations or new construction within the designated area of the city. So the applicants have already gone before historic zoning for a preliminary recommendation. So they are not requesting to change the historic preservation overlay line. When the word rezoning is mentioned, it's the base zoning district. So there's the base zoning, which they're requesting for planned district, and the historic overlay exists on top of that planned district. So the line for historic preservation is not changing or being altered. And to kind of get to your main point, historic zoning commission, again, their main objective is to review and approve any alterations to existing historic buildings, or review and approve any new construction so they are complementary to the area.
Yeah.
So because the reason why I ask is on page 41 of the residential guide approach and formatting for historical, the first sentence says, of primary importance is the approach of design guidelines and the emphasis of preservation over replacement. So, I mean, that's the first statement that said in Franklin's own noted historical design guidelines itself. So I'm just curious of how the first sentence on that is completely disregarded when it comes to this. That's my only question. It's the first sentence on the residential guidelines and approach, page 41 on Franklin's own book. So that's my question on where's the line of argument saying that this doesn't have any historical importance, and in fact, keeping it as it stands is what that is representing. If it's open land, then it's open land. If it's a farm, it's a farm. If it's a horse pasture, it's a horse pasture. That's the first statement in which it resides on that document. So that was my question of how was the argument made that this in fact is a good representation of what's actually being done on this historical overlay.
Yeah, thank you for your feedback. I just want to point out, we have been through historic zoning. As I mentioned, we've been to several DRC meetings, historic zoning meetings. We've received our first kind of step nod of approval from historic zoning. So I'd advise you to attend the meetings in the future, reach out to the city, be part of these meetings, but we have been before that board. They've recommended a preliminary approval to move forward. So I'd like to move on after that question to address some of these other questions, because I don't want to run out of time till we have no time. So thank you. So I'll get to the chat sessions here. I'll start kind of going through these. So you're trying to rezone because it's historic. I think we talked about that. Do you think this office building would be approved on Garden Plantation. We're not proposing an office building. We are proposing multifamily residential, single-family houses, duplexes, townhomes, and a small portion of retail on this master plan. As I mentioned, we are asking for a PD rezoning, and Envision Franklin encourages multifamily on the site, and we're going by that land use plan amendment. How did the master plan get approved before Envision Franklin had their final findings 2 weeks ago? From what I saw, the majority does not like what you're proposing. Yes, we did get approval to amend the Envision Franklin document, and that was really just to allow additional height and allow for a limited portion of retail. So we're not changing the color on the map. We're not changing what the city proposed for multifamily. We're doing what they had suggested in their design concept. So we're meeting multifamily residential, as I mentioned, the orange blocks that are on the plan. Those are existing multifamily zones that the city has allocated in their Envision Franklin document. So that should address that question. Has FEMA provided a recent study on the floodplain in this area? Underground parking is going to greatly impact the capacity of floodwater that is deterred from old Liberty Pike residents. We are working with the city of Franklin's current regulations. Again, the 100-year flood is on this little pipe stem. I'll go to the plan here. There is 100-year floodplain that's right here. As you know, much of Old Liberty Pike is in the 100-year floodplain. So we're studying that diligently. Everything will be above the floodplain, both the garage below the building, all the buildings at grade, everything will be out of the 100-year floodplain. So we are studying FEMA and the floodway maps with the city of Franklin. That's part of our submittal documents, very detailed. Next question was, what does reduction of parking mean? There's not enough parking for all units. Wouldn't that be a parking 2 spots per unit? So as part of our traffic impact study, we provided a parking study. We have seen in the city of Franklin that the parking demand is very high. We want to make sure this multifamily, all the residents are parked adequately. And we want to make sure that there's enough residential parking spaces for every unit. So we are asking for a certain amount of parking spaces per building, specifically for the multifamily. We will all be parked within underground. So we want to be efficient about that. Everybody has ample opportunity for parking. All the residences that are on the street, so to speak, internally, will have either driveways or garages within the townhomes, all these perimeter buildings, as well as on-street parking. So it's a combination of both. So we will propose a parking reduction to meet the current demand of what is required for this type of multifamily development proposal. Can you overlay a map of the Liberty Pike floodplain on top of the new development? There's not I guess I'll go to the survey to answer that question. So if you look at, and this may be hard to see on the screen, but this is the existing property in yellow. The 100-year floodplain is right here, right on this pipe stem. So that is the 100-year flood, and it kind of continues over to Franklin Road, continues across Daniels Drive. But you can see the 100-year floodplain does not impact the development in terms of building location. This is where we're showing a proposed potential path that connects Old Liberty Pike through the project to the factory. So the 100-year floodplain is right here. We're not impacting that with development on this project.
How can you say that? How can you guarantee that you're not impacting the 100-year floodplain with a project of this scale? You already said it flows down.
Yes.
The water is going to come right into my yard, like it did 2 years ago and flooded my house.
Yes.
Me too.
As I mentioned, this site is flowing. There's about a 26, 27 feet drop from Liberty Pike to Old Liberty Pike, which is totally unimpeded. The water is just sheeting off. And that is
and getting absorbed by the land and not concrete.
Yes, right now it's existing. This water is flowing directly into the back of your home. It's just unimpeded, not being collected. It's just free flowing down the hillside.
And concrete is going to help that.
So what we've submitted is engineered documents that meet the standards of the city of Franklin for stormwater, water quality. That shows how we detain water, we provide water quality. We cannot impose more water that is currently on the site off-site. So it's all has to be studied and designed to meet those requirements by the city of Franklin.
Can you provide those? Can you provide those documents publicly to us?
Yeah. How do I do that? Say the question one more time. Sorry.
Can those documents be provided publicly to us to show us these engineered plans? I don't have a lot of faith in what the city says versus what FEMA might say.
Yeah, will these documents recently? And will these documents get submitted to FEMA for review?
All plans are submitted to the city of Franklin for review. They're all public records, so you can reach out to planning staff, engineering to see the plans, but they're very detailed in engineering, and we have a solid team on the team, both civil engineering, transportation, architecture, landscape architecture, and myself. So all those plans are public records, so you can view all those and see the study. Reach out to
where does FEMA fit in on this?
They work with hand in hand with the city and review the plans as we submit them. Yeah.
If everybody's muted.
Okay. Like to move on forward with the comments and the questions here. We've got the parking reduction, overlay the flood map. As I mentioned, the 100-year flood here. Where's the water going to drain to? I think that's part of what the woman was asking, that, like I said, it's all unimpeded flow. We have to show how we design this properly to meet all the stormwater quality and off-site discharge of the site on our drawing. So that's all been detailed and studied. We're working with the city as part of that submittal process. So we're working on that. That's required by the city to provide all that information. So we want to help as best we can to assist with the situation as it currently exists today with water just flowing through the site. Will there be a traffic study on how this will affect the residential street on Little Liberty Pike, which has already had an issue with cut-through traffic that does not follow posted speed limit? Yes, as I mentioned, a traffic study has been provided. We've gotten some feedback, working hand in hand with the city on that. And that takes into account all traffic counts, movements, patterns, turning movements, all proposed uses within this district, including the factory. So we're taking all that into account. Where would all the 200+ dogs go to the bathroom? That's a great question. Is the stormwater area dog park? It is anticipated that a portion of this little pocket park here in the master plan, zoom in there, one more. This is our stormwater treatment area in this location. This is, the low end of the site. We want to incorporate some type of dog park here. So you have an opportunity to walk your pet in that location, as well as pedestrian trails. You said there was a buffer between the property on Franklin Road because it was historic overlay. Aren't the homes on Old Liberty Pike also? Will there be a buffer there? Going back to the historic preservation overlay, the green is historic preservation overlay. As you can see, Old Liberty Pike is not in the historic preservation overlay, and half of this site is not in historic preservation overlay. Obviously, Franklin Road, Jameson Station, the factory is all in historic overlay district. We are providing a buffer against the nationally registered historic property, the Truett House. We are showing a separation or green space against the edge of the Old Liberty Pike properties that line the street. And those range from this edge here along Old Liberty Pike is plus or minus 30 feet. Landscape buffer, tree preservation here. Adjacent here, I think we're 10 to 12 feet with additional supplemental landscape along this edge. But the intent is to preserve the trees that are in good health and replace with something that's more provide screening, transition, more green as well, in addition to what there is now. Next question, I agree, and I'm concerned about the floodplain rising for houses on Old Liberty Pike that have already backyards that get flooded. As I mentioned, we're studying that in detail. That's required by the city of Franklin for stormwater management and stormwater quality. Question to the city. This is, I'm not sure if I can answer this, but this is a setting of a dangerous precedent to any future of Franklin as to preserving its character. If this is allowed, this will be used as a club to beat down any rejection of a development project. This is proving the groundwork that anything zoned historical or residential can be rezoned to maximize profitability of the lot. Again, we are asking and working with the city aldermen, the planning commissioners, historic zoning to ask for a rezoning and development plan for this project to allow for a mix of residential product type and diversity and opportunities for different type of product type. The owner and client have that opportunity to ask this request. It is the city to make the final decision, but this is what we are asking for and proposing for a rezoning of a multifamily mixed-use residential project. Why do you keep referring to the buildings as 4+1 as 5 stories? I'll go back to these elevations. So the city of Franklin sees buildings as stories. They also talk about, well, if you have stories, we'd like to see, if you're going to have a building height, we'd like to see something step back and transition, much like Jameson Station does. So when I say 4+1, it is 5 stories, or it's 2+1, it is 3 stories, but want to acknowledge that working with historic zoning, they like the way that recesses off the building facade to create that step back to, create that streetscape to articulate the building and give it character. It's not a stark facade. It's all one. If it was all 4 stories or 5 stories straight up and you don't have that setback, it just is very a pronounced feature on the streetscape. So that's why we always say it's 4+1, 2+1, being the top floor recessed on the multifamily buildings to create that articulation of the building and building mass. Next question, how much further back is it really than Jameson? There are parts that have setbacks, but other parts seem really close to the street. I'll go to the plan here. So this shows how close Jameson Station is to the street here. So we're proposing a 12-foot wide sidewalk, which is a multi-purpose sidewalk, which is encouraged by the city of Franklin. So that gives it even a broader setback. We have a 6-foot planting strip, a 12-foot sidewalk, then the building. We range in dimension. Some of these courtyards are 77 to 80 feet deep. Off the street, we're probably 10 feet off the sidewalk here in some locations, maybe 5 in others. But as you can see, it's projected off the street. Given the fact we have the planting strip, the 12-foot sidewalk, landscaped in the building, compared to Jameson Station, which is right on the street. So when you look at this facade, it ebbs and flows back and forth, allow that flexibility in the building to not have all that mass on the street and create a better streetscape. Let's see, what are the proposed prices of the rental condos on Liberty Pike, duplexes, single family residential? Also, will those have garages or will they park? So all the multifamily buildings, go to the plan. All the multifamily buildings, the parking is underground, as I mentioned, to meet the adequate needs of the parking. Prices, we've talked internally with our team that, being this is 18 to 24 months and 18 to 24 months out potentially from having a finished product, it's difficult to give a true estimate of what this may be. If we had studios for rent today, the cost could be $1,300 to $1,400 a month, ranging for a 400 square foot unit. But it's all pending on current market rates and what the market demands. So that's kind of in the process as we're working through the project. But really, we want to offer a diverse product type, be it single family home, multifamily residential, duplex, or townhome. So provide that flexibility so there's an opportunity for different product type at different price levels. That's way too tall to be next to the 2-story factory. We've had discussions at historic zoning about that. They've seen the plans. We built a 3D model of this project as well and shared that with the Planning Commission, historic zoning that showcases that. But we've been working with historic zoning. They have given us the preliminary nod to move forward. And again, they will have to review anything detailed in the historic preservation, which is inside this blue line here. And then the city also will review every detail of all the buildings on the perimeter of that as well. So we have been working transitionally from all the edges to transition from Daniels to Franklin and from Liberty to Old Liberty Pike. Next question. Why does the building have to be taller than Jameson Station condos? Both are taller than the original envision plans. Currently within the city of Franklin in Mac Hatcher, the maximum is 3 stories for Envision Franklin. Jameson Station is a non-conforming use. That is a 4-story building. And we work specifically with historic zoning to show that it makes sense to work with the existing Jameson Station, be within 10% of its height, and then transition to Franklin Road in building height from building number 2, which is a 5-story building, 4+1, to a building 1, which is 3 stories, 2+1, and then the townhome. So there's a transition from existing 4-story Jameson Station to Franklin Road. And historic zoning worked with us on that and gave us that preliminary nod to move forward. Again, we still have to go before them on future detailed plans, so they'll be part of the process. Next question. Are the single family homes going to have street parking? And I forgot to answer the question on the last one. Yes, single family homes are going to have street parking. As you see on this plan, there's parallel parking on the street. There will also be garages and tandem parking spaces or motor courts. So you'll have an opportunity to have a garage and also turning movements to park in that zone and park on the street. So you have a combination of garage and surface parking. Next question. Is it all rentals, even the townhomes? At this time, we're exploring all options. We want to, let's see, exploring all options to have the best for the long-term viability of the middle eight. Some of this will be dictated by market demand, but this is for rent in the middle here. And these are opportunities for townhomes, duplex, and single family along the edges. So it'll be based on market demand. Single families have side garages, believe, and some parking on street. Yeah, somebody answered my question. Why are you providing 275 units on the site? We're respectfully asking this before the city. They will vote on this. They will have the final say on this before the Planning Commission and Mayor and Board of Aldermen and historic zoning. So we're on our way. And we have to go through this process to get there. So our request is to rezone to allow this residential option. If retail wasn't there, could buildings be shorter? Again, we are promoting multifamily development, single family townhomes and duplexes with a small component of retail. Working with Envision Franklin as prescribed to allow this diversity of project type residential. Do you know how many retail spaces will be there? You said give or take 3,000. Yeah, 3,000 square feet is what we're promoting on the plans for retail component. It's really a cafe, a restaurant, coffee shop for the benefit of the community and for the residents. And it would be housed in this location here on Liberty Pike. This is just a small component of the development with the residential. We know the factory has all the great dynamic spaces, restaurant, and opportunities there. We don't need to compete with that. This is just for the benefit of the community and for the residents. Let's see. TIS study been provided? Yes, we provided that. There's a question about a meeting in Liberty Pike. This is our vision of Liberty Pike and working with the aldermen, the planning staff. This is our idea. We're having team meetings with the city of Franklin, the factory, city officials on what this streetscape could look like. This is an option that we've proposed to calm traffic, to allow a landscape, to provide pedestrian crossings that are safe. Liberty Pike is just a difficult road. It's not a very walkable road. So we want to make it as encouraging, as safe as we can. And it may be a meeting with landscape. It may be some other options. That's something we're studying with the city and our client and with our design team. So that's kind of on the table as we're working through the process. The question was asked earlier about the environmental element. We addressed that. How many parking spaces are in the underground parking? I can check that. Unless Joe, you have that off the top of your head. The parking spaces provided underneath the building. Is it plus or minus 400 parking spaces underneath the building? I think he's muted, so. I want to say there's plus or minus 400 spaces below the building, underground parking. Jameson Station never received the information regarding the neighborhood meetings, not even for this meeting. This development will impact us the most, and we should be included in all activities. Totally agree. We are required to notify with everybody within 500 feet. That list is provided to us by the city of Franklin. So they give us the list of everybody within 500 feet. So you should be getting a notice, but feel free to reach out to me. Visit the website that I mentioned for the Middle Lake project. But we want you to be part of these meetings if you can, and would like to get your support. And as I mentioned, our clients are more than happy to meet and talk about the project specifically. Has this been 100% approved by Historic Zoning Committee Review Board? As I mentioned, we've gone through several DRC meetings, which is Design Review Committee, which is Historic Zoning. And we have the preliminary meeting of approval from them, preliminary certificate of appropriateness that allowed us to move forward. Without that, we could have not moved forward to this PD development plan rezoning. So we had to get that approval from them. We have to go back to them for anything within this zone, the blue line zone, to get their approval for final detailed architecture, building massing scale, design, color, materials. So they are integral to the process as we move forward, and will always be part of that for this portion of the project. So we've got the first step done. We need to move forward with them in the final design of the buildings. And that is forthcoming after we get the request for the PD in. Concerned about the density and the height of the building, 275 units is a tremendous difference from the current single family. Also concerned about traffic and parking. It's already difficult to turn left from Daniels Drive and the Liberty Pike. Thank you for the comment. We are also, as I mentioned, doing the traffic study, looking at stormwater, looking at working with the city. As I mentioned, this is a rezoning effort. It'll be the final decision of the city to vote on this, but this is our proposal for a mix of multifamily, residential, single family, townhomes, and duplexes. So all those elements will be reviewed and taken in by the city of Franklin as we move forward. This concept has presented basically envisions a standalone community that does not seem to complement the existing residential character of the subdivisions of the south and west. Can you address this? When we're looking at this project, we're looking at this holistically, both the architecture, the layout of the plan, the transition of uses, transition of height, working with the city staff and how things kind of orient themselves. They transition from one east-west or they transition north-south. That is very crucial. We've taken great detail to show the elements of the architecture, how it transitions, the heights and the stories, working with staff. So we feel like we provided the information and working with them hand in hand to get where we are today. And making sure we provide something the community can get behind, our aldermen and city officials can get behind, and show the detail that in this drawing set of what could be accomplished, our vision. How will the noise be buffered? That will be a combination of existing vegetation, proposed mitigation or supplemental if landscape elements as well. That'll get into the more details as we move forward into the kind of detailed drawings. The chat is not a realistic way to, okay, we talked about that. We've heard some voices. As a resident on Low Liberty, I completely agree with everything she is saying. That must be about the traffic and the concept. So I think I addressed what we're trying to provide here. They're agreeing. Old Liberty residents, that completely agrees. Again, I'd like to have you all, it's an open door, meet with our clients, reach out to me, ask any questions, reach out to your aldermen and planning commissioners. That's your right. Daniels Drive cannot support your proposed traffic. As part of our traffic impact study, the city is required that right now it's an existing 2-lane drive with parallel parking on it. They're requesting that we provide another turn lane left going northbound on the Liberty Pike. So you'll have 1 lane going south, 2 lanes going north, either straight or making a left or right. So we're improving Liberty and Daniels intersection. To help Daniels Drive. Now stormwater, flood water. I've talked about all the plans that are detailed as part of the submittal engineering components. This question's about traffic. I think I went through that. Will parking still be allowed on the street in front of my property at 20 Daniels Drive? Daniels Drive does have parallel parking next to Jameson. We're proposing parallel parking on the opposite side of the existing parallel parking on Daniels, and that's all. The rest would stay as it currently is. We're just providing additional parallel parking on Daniels and another turn lane left going northbound. They're talking about limited parking on College, Old Liberty Pike. This project will impact our overall parallel parking space. We do not have a parking garage to use. Right, the parking garage is for the units in Jameson Station along Liberty Pike. As a resident on Old Liberty, where people already park in my yard every time we have an event and barely miss a flood zone, I have serious concerns about density, water flow, floods, not storm, and traffic that already speeds down our street. Excuse me. Hopefully I addressed all that. We're working on that with the city hand in hand. Stormwater, flood, and traffic. Yes, you should get notices for the meeting if you're within 500 feet. Please reach out to the city if you have not received one. We received all the addresses from the city of Franklin. And we have the names and email address of the people on the historic committee. That is on the website, City of Franklin. You can reach out to them, go to historic zoning. You'll see everybody on the historic zoning. Oh, somebody put it there. Great, there we go. We know them all very well. They've been very helpful and accommodating for us and working through that process. Thank you for that. Thank you for preservation buffer answer. I see the property to the south of Toby's property doesn't have a buffer any reason. Let's see, thank you for the preservation buffer answer. I see the property south of Toby's doesn't have a buffer because we're not proposing anything to the south of Toby's site. That is the existing property line, that yellow, so there's no buffer south. We propose a buffer to the east because it is on part of this property. That is not our property there on the south, so that's why there's not a buffer there. In case you forgot, the vote that won in Vision Bank was a 3-story because that was our lowest option. It was 3 stories because that was our lowest option. Again, we went to Franklin Planning Commission to ask for increased height. We got that approval unanimously for land use plan amendment, text amendment for multifamily. So that has been approved and we're moving forward with the PD rezoning plan. From your definition, Jameson Station is a 3+1 story building. Correct. It is 3 stories plus 1, a total of 4 stories. It's a non-conforming building within the City of Franklin, Envision Franklin document. Will the development have an HOA and will they restrict the owned units from turning into rentals and investment properties? Yes, there will be an HOA. The details of restricted ownership and turning of rental units, that is something that needs to be worked on in the future. Again, this is all pending market demand and what opportunities we can promote more livability within our downtown core in the city of Franklin. But the intent is to provide an option of diversity of housing. Personally, I find Liberty Pike very walkable as it is. I walk it all the time. We'd like to make it better. The city would like to make it better. So we're trying to accommodate that, both with this plan and the traffic impact study. Amanda alluded yesterday at the Williamson Inc. meeting that, so Amanda is part of Truling Group, that this project for the person preparing your coffee across the street, it was asked in the work session weeks ago if this was less expensive housing and the answer was no. Can you please clarify? I agree, we need housing for our first responders, teachers, et cetera, to live here. They are the heartbeat of the community, and I'm just trying to understand what this project's goal is. Good question. I'll read what our client stance on that is. The middle-aged multifamily buildings and the product title on this master plan will offer a range of diverse housing options, ranging from small studios and one-bedroom apartments to larger 2- and 3-bedroom units. Our goal in particular with the small studios is to be able to offer those who are willing to live small and an option in the middle-aged. The housing option really doesn't exist today in a walkable downtown Franklin. So again, we want to afford that opportunity to give somebody a chance to have varying size units from 1-bedroom studios to 1-bedrooms to 3, 2, 3, 4 to give that option, provide that opportunity for those within the downtown core. Why would you rent the duplexes and houses? We haven't talked about that. That has not been said. Market demand will always want rentals, but renters are temporary. And if you want people who are invested in our community, especially in the historic area, they need to be owned, in my opinion. The parking spaces, which are not enough, there are not 2 per unit and crowd are walkable streets, in my opinion. I wanted to go on the record mostly to say renting everything doesn't feel Franklin. So again, we're providing a mix. We have multifamily residential for rent, and then the option for the perimeter townhomes, duplexes, and single family. So a mix of diversity. I talked about the parking that we have a parking demand study being prepared. The city will review that. We've asked for typically in project in the past for a reduction. So it's not uncommon. And we stated that in some of our meetings with the city of Franklin. Your traffic onto Daniels across from Jameson will affect Jameson residents. Again, as part of the traffic impact study, we're doing our best to work with the city of Franklin and provide necessary improvements as needed. But it's all about creating safe environments, walkable environments, and traffic concerns. So that's being reviewed by the city of Franklin. Any proposed changes in zoning for the Truett property? No, we have specifically carved out the Truett home from this development to keep it intact. It is a nationally registered historic property. It will remain that way. It fronts Franklin Road. We want it to be there, and carved out this site specifically to enhance the Franklin Road character as a single family residence and allow for this mix of different residential options. Let's see. I think that's the last question on there. Yeah, please add any more. One more question. I may have misheard your answer earlier, but when you answered the question about potential price point, did you say it could be between 1,300 to 1,400 per month for a 400 square foot unit? Just wondering if some units will really be that small and what are the ranges of square footages? I did say the studios, if they were on the market within 18 to 24 months, could be $1,300 to $1,400 per month for 400 plus or minus square feet. There's a range of square footages. Maybe the architects, maybe if you want to type in what the mix of square footages may be for the multifamily units, if you could, or maybe I can unmute you. But yeah, we're showing 400 square foot units and above, so it provides an opportunity for various size units. Who can afford to live there, not through the cafe worker that Toby has suggested? Again, we're just providing an opportunity within the city of Franklin to give an option. That's all we're requesting. Market value at the time they are complete, right? How many studios that small out of the 250 plus? Okay. Yeah. Toby's bathroom is probably 400 square feet. Yeah, now we're getting comical. Yeah, so we really wanted to show a mix of product type within the multifamily units, provide a various opportunity of housing options. I think that's the last question. We thank everybody for being here. And again, as I mentioned, we have many steps to go. You have your opportunity for your voice to be heard at Franklin Planning Commission. The dates I have mentioned. Go back to the end here, wrap this up. Oop. Yeah, so the first public meeting would be April 27th. Next meeting would be May 25th, and then future board meetings after that, 3 readings. But want to be able to get your time out there to voice your opinion or reach out to me or our clients. Visit the website I mentioned here on the screen, livemiddleaid.com. Has a lot of information you can go to, but we thank you for your time and providing these questions. And have a good evening. We appreciate it. Thank you very much.